Hello and welcome to the very first official video for Birthright Fantasy. This channel is going to be primarily for anyone who has an active imagination and wants some ideas to help fuel that imagination, and also wants to share their ideas with the community on a common interest, a common theme. And perhaps for people who even want to play fantasy role-playing games or tabletop battle games, if you're experienced in the genre or not at all, this is going to be a place where you can learn the rules, see what it's about, and discover the universes of fantasy, because they're really infinite universes. And even though I own 300 books on the subject, it's still a very, very, very small fraction of what's out there. And even then, what's out there is everything, everyone's mind. So it's really an unlimited thing that we could be talking about here. But to start off, we're going to be talking about the most common aspects of this hobby, which primarily would be Dungeons and Dragons. And for video number 3, I'm going to be talking about dragons in particular. And you see right here, oh, wrong side, a poster of dragons. So I know a lot of videos they'll be talking about Dungeons and Dragons, but you're not going to hear them actually talk about Dungeons and Dragons until a while in. Well, we're going to get that out of the way here on my first release of videos. We're going to have 3 releases, and this one I'm going to talk a little bit about the naming system for my videos, which is on this piece of paper right here. And going into that, I'm also going to give a lot of background for the role-playing and wargaming genre in general. Whether you are familiar with a little bit of it, with a lot of it, or you're brand new to the whole thing, I'm trying to make these videos for you. At the same time, it would be great if you guys could give me feedback and let me know exactly what you want to see, and I'll respond to that and make videos directly for what you guys want to see. If you say, hey, slow it down, I want to hear more about this, you didn't explain this very well, I could just make a video really quick and explain anything. So I'm going to be coming up with a system to be doing that, but I'll talk about that later on. For now, we'll just stick with the first 3 videos. And a little bit on the name, Birthright Fantasy. I want to explain it with a picture, and I can't really draw, so I kind of want to contract out someone. But just to put it simply, I think your imagination, your ability to create a fantasy is one of your most attached rights, one of your strongest powers. It's the last thing someone could take from you. Someone could take your eyes so you can't see. They could take your ears. They could cut off your hands. They can make you mute. They cut off your tongue. But the last thing that's going to go is going to be your ability to escape reality and enter a fantasy world with your mind. And that's really what it comes down to. That's what this is about. Being able to take a break from reality, whether it's your job or the drama in your life from all the weird people. Whatever it is, it's about creating a fantasy universe and be able to share it with your friends. And the biggest thing is, we could create our own universe with D&D. We don't have to just watch a movie or read a book. We could be part of the story. And at that, I will show you, well, I'm jumping ahead of myself here. Let me change the camera. Let's get rid of me here. Right here, what I have to show you guys is pretty much the groundwork for naming the videos and titling the videos to keep it organized for you guys, and the theory behind that. And right here is the very original one I did. I just kind of want to put it up there to show you guys, but then I organized it and wrote it a little bit neater on this piece of paper. So we don't need to see that anymore. So one of the things, I'll be showing you guys a lot of artwork from the genre fantasy. This right here is an advertisement for D&D, which I'm now repurposing to advertise my channel and the concept of D&D and fantasy gaming in general to you. I mean, you could really be as cool as you want. You could be any one of these guys: wizard, sketchy guy in robes, girl with amazing hair, or Legolas if he was a man. It's really, in D&D, the biggest thing about D&D is creating your own character and doing what you want to do. That's really the highlight of D&D. You create your character, and one person in the game creates the world. So everything else besides your character and the other characters, he creates all of that. So you have a new reality to deal with with your virtual self, and that's essentially what you do in Dungeons & Dragons. It says, discover the new D&D game and have some real fun. So even though it's all fantasy, it is real fun, and it's really fun. At that, I'll show you guys one more piece of artwork before we get started here. And this right here, once again, getting right into it, showing you guys the dragons. Looks like a picture, I want to say it's from Dragonlance campaign setting, and I'll be talking about that a little bit in video number 2, coming up here pretty soon. But what you see here is, it looks like 5 adventurers who have slain very small, which means it's a young, I want to say it's a green dragon. The dragons kind of changed looks in the editions, but if you look, yeah, it looks way different than the regular 3.5 edition D&D green dragon. So maybe it's another species, or it's a Dragonlance dragon. And that's the cool thing about D&D, is there's so many little mini universes within D&D where things can change. For example, if this is Dragonlance, like I think it is, there's a planet and nations and armies and monsters that are all specific to Dragonlance. So there might be another reality or universe within a different planet that could be completely different, and the dragons might look different, like this green dragon up here, which you'll see in video 3. So you could do a lot of stuff with D&D, and that's just looking at D&D and not the greater spectrum. But all right, continuing on. So this is pretty much the equation of how I'm going to name my titles, and the end result is down here. So we're going to start off with the system, and that's just going to be really simple. It's going to be the game and the version. So once again, going back to D&D for an example, the game's called Dungeons & Dragons, and there's been 7 editions. There's been the original, which we call it 0 edition, 1, 2, 3, then they had a 3.5, then they had 4, 5. So if I counted right, that's right. Next, we're going to go to the product type. And these product types are through all editions, so it's not specific to the system at all. So these product types you'll find in various systems. Some of the product types we're looking at are character core rules. Oh, it looks like my light's a little bit bright here. Let me adjust it here. All right, that's a little bit dimmer. Hopefully you guys can still read that. I'll have to work on that. I don't know what happened there. Anyways, you have character core rules, and that's going to be your very, very basic rules that you should know to play the game. But the caveat to that is you don't need to know any rules to play the game, and that's the coolest thing. Only one person needs to know all of the rules, and that's the dungeon master or the world builder or the game master. And that's one person's the only requirement to know the rules. Everyone else, if you want, you could just be playing along and making decisions without knowing the rules to what you're doing. But just like anything else in life, if you don't know the rules to the game you're playing, you're going to have a hard time. But it is possible. So you don't need to pick up a book and learn how to play before you play. You could learn as you go, and that's a really cool thing that I'm going to help you guys do. The world builder rules or dungeon master rules would be for D&D. These are also core rules, but therefore building the universe and non-player characters, which are like characters that the dungeon master controls and not a real player. So they're kind of like side characters or even main enemies in a movie that aren't played by one of the good guys per se. So with those two, you have your core rules, and that's what the person running the game should be familiar with. Everything else is just extra options to enhance your fantasy and confuse you. That's all that stuff is. Except for right here, number 3, the monster book. Those are also core rules in a way. It's often how they're released as, at least for D&D. But in reality, there's a bunch of monster books, and there's no reason why the core monster book is any more core than the rest of the monster books. And for that reason, I put them in a separate section for monster books. Those are pretty much just dictionaries with a bunch of beasts in them, animals, and humans too. Well, we'll talk about the word monster in D&D later on. A topic focus book. Now it's funny because for my video number 3, I had not written this down at that time, and I looked at all these options here, and I could not find one for the book I wanted to do. So I had to add the topic focus, and that's just looking at one aspect of the fantasy universe, such as dragons. A book on dragons, I didn't see how it really quite fit in any of these other categories, even though it did somewhat in a lot of ways. It didn't fit good enough for me to pick that option. Campaign settings, we'll talk about that more later, but that's kind of like what Dragonlance we already talked about. It's a different universe and different cities and different characters and everything specific to that version of D&D. Era settings is the same concept, but that's just going back in time or going into the future and putting new rules in place for that. Environmental, I'm talking about a book that would talk about the desert and talk about all the problems in the desert and the animals in the desert and going thirsty and dying and all that stuff, and a book about the ocean and all the hazards of sailing on a ship and whatnot. So that's just kind of like your environment. Metagame is the knowledge that's not in the game universe. So a book like that would be talking about how to interact with your players, how to run the game outside of the game. That's what we call the metagame. It's kind of a term you should be familiar with if you're familiar with video games. If not, it's probably brand new to you. And it's kind of hard to grasp, even for me. It took me a while to really everyone I guess has their own definition of it in a way, the metagame, but that's just thinking outside the game universe and not thinking within the scope of the game. Some books are going to be just pure artwork, or I'll show you artwork like this piece right here. Lore. A few books just talk about lore. They don't have any rules in them, and they just talk about the history of whatever they're talking about. We'll do a couple novels, more to come on that later, but there are some amazing D&D novels. Magazines. They have a lot of D&D magazines. Race options would be like if you want to play different random races like half dragons or trolls or just stuff out of the blue like that. Class options, pretty much any occupation you could ever imagine in a fantasy universe, which would be pretty much anything. There's a class option for it, some kind of profession or some kind of skills associated with being a certain way. Equipment, self-explanatory. These books just deal with equipment, and I'm going to throw vehicles into that equipment category. Magic rules. Some books just talk about new magic systems, such as psionics or the power of your mind. They'll have a whole book on that system and how it's different from the rest of them and how to use it. Combat rules, kind of like magic rules, but they'll talk about brand new combat systems. Adventures. These are really cool books that walk you through hand in hand an entire adventure, and they supply the world builder with everything they need to run the adventure. Now, the world builder could take that page by page and do it exactly how intended, or they could cut pieces of it and put it into their own world. It could go multiple ways. Spellbook, or books with a list of spells, pretty self-explanatory. I can't really pronounce this word. I'm going to say gazetteer. But, well, maybe you don't know. I barely know what this word is, but I'm pretty sure it has maps in it. Accessories, that's going to be for, I need to expand on that, but that's like dice, Dungeon Master screens, anything that's not quite a book. Miniatures, little models. I've got a decent collection. I've got a lot back. Estranged from me, I guess I should say, but I've also got a decent amount here with me right now. Map packs, we'll get into that. And dungeon tiles, that's just like, we'll get into that later. So that's probably the biggest one there, the product type, but it's going to be important to narrow down the items by the product type. Then you got the item number. That's just going to be a simple sequential number for a particular product type and system. And to explain that a little bit, so the item number is particular. So every time you change either the system or the product type, or I guess I should say the product type within a system, that's more accurate, then you get a new item number. So for all the monster books for the first edition, it can be monster book 1, 2, 3. But then when you go to an environmental book for first edition, you're going to go back to number 1. And the video number is like the same thing I just explained, but that's particular to each item. So the reason why that's important is I'm going to do a video today for the Draconomicon, the dragon book, but it's going to be a quick video. It's not going to be a complete review overview. So that's going to be number 1, but who knows, there's going to be number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 coming down the road. And after that, you have kind of the video text title. That's going to be the system plus a product type. I'm going to display that on the title of the video. And then we have the different types of videos. So a review, a highlight, a rant, a concept overview, lore, battle report. Those are all ideas I have. I'll go over a couple of them. The review, I want to have a really solid review where I could break down the book for you, tell you what it'll do for you, what it won't do for you, and tell you what parts about it I recommend and what parts I don't, and then an overall recommendation on the book. And for the reviews, I'm going to want to have something I can give you in a digital format to reference in the review. So those are going to be, I guess, more time-consuming, really concrete reviews. Highlights is going to be like a mini review looking at either all of the book or parts of the book differently. Rants, it's going to be a rant. It's going to be jumping between different subjects. Video 2 is going to be a rant. It's going to be got something I want to share with you. It's actually interesting today for the first time in all my years of collecting books. Something happened for the first time, and I'm going to share with you what that is and what I did about it and how it's going to help us. Concept overview. That's if I'm going to talk about a concept within the genre that spans over different systems and product types. So if I want to talk about character creation or making a character, in other words, I could talk about that and compare and contrast the original edition, second edition, third edition, first edition, fifth edition, and even other game types besides just D&D. And that would be kind of a concept overview where I'm talking about a concept rather than a book in particular. The rest of them we're not going to talk about. And then the Birthright fantasy number, that's just going to be a site-wide sequential video number. So this is number 1, and then number 2 is going to be next, and number 3 is going to be next, and I'm sure you can fill in the rest. We go down here. This right here is going to be the title for video number 3, and I'll break it down, and you can see it color-coded. So you have the system, which has the game, D&D, I abbreviate, which is a D 3.5. That's the version. Then you have the title of the book, the Draconomicon. And then you have the video type. What I'll be doing is highlights of the book. And then you come to your number where you have S05, so that's system number 5. Then you have the product type, and that's product type number 8. And then you have, let me explain that really quick, how I got 5 and 8. So D&D is going to go in order. There's actually a 0 edition of D&D I talked about earlier. So edition 3.5 is really, in actuality, the 5th edition of D&D. And the first games I'm doing, as far as its ordering, is D&D. So that's why that's 5. It's really the 5th edition, technically. That's why it comes to S05. And T08, I just made up the 8. That's kind of going in these. I don't really care what order they're in, except for 1 and 2. But I just threw out the number 8 just to put it out there. Then we have, continuing on, the item number. And this is the first book ever, but it's also the first book in S5T8. So that's going to be 1. And then it's the first video I'm doing on that book. So it's going to be video 1. And then over here you have the Birthright fantasy number. It's going to be the 3rd video. And I know that because it's going to be my 3rd video. And then our second video is going to be down here at the end. You can see a little bit different formatting from that. And that's mainly because it's not it's not a specific book. I'll be talking about a couple options, not just one book. So we're going to lose that number that references it really specifically, and we're going to replace it with a couple keywords of what I'll be talking about. So We start off with multiple systems here. We have 2nd edition D&D and 3.5 D&D. I'm going to put them both out there. Then I'm going to put the video type. It's going to be a rant. It's going to be a good rant. And it's going to be about bootleg books, which is really interesting. So stay tuned on video number 2, and I'll explain that for you. And it's going to be about Spelljammer, which is a campaign setting, and Dragonlance, which is a campaign setting. And that's going to be the 2nd video. So I hope you learned a little bit about what I'm going to be doing here, and I hope it's piqued your curiosity. And let me just check to make sure I've talked about everything I want to talk about. Oh, really important. Eventually, I'm going to expand this little idea of mine to go into hosting games and running games for you or whoever wants to be in a game, whoever wants to play a fantasy game online, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons or a different game, or perhaps we'll find a way to do Warhammer in tabletop battle games. Who knows? It's all possible. It really is. So I'm putting it out there right now. Eventually, of course, it's going to be a pay-for thing because I want to make money doing this. It's going to be a lot of hours and time put into it. But to start off, for I don't know how long, I want to do it 100% for free while I work out the kinks and figure out what I want to do and if people like it or not. So I'm going to do it for different versions, and I don't know what version I'm going to start off as right now, but I'm going to be asking people. Right now I'm asking you guys, if you're interested at all, I'm going to leave my email in the comments of the video, and you can send me an email and say, hey, I'm interested in playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's going to be D&D for sure. It's going to be a D&D edition. But you can say, hey, I'm interested, and I'll keep that noted for when I get a more concrete idea of when it's going to start and whatnot. But I'll tell you, it's beneficial if you get a group of 4 people. Well, let's say between 3 and 5 people who have the same time slot availability that want to play. And if you get that together, then I can almost guarantee you I could work something out, and I could host you a game, and we could make it work as soon as a month from now. Anyways, after I talk about that, I wanted to mention one thing, and that's here at the top of this De Las Vegas Trading Company. That's going to be my next project, and it's going to be a more overarching company I want to create. And my goal is to travel around the world and collect handmade, beautiful products and different types of food and bring those to other places in the world and pretty much buy and trade on a worldwide scale. But I'm going to do it all by myself starting off. I'm going to go there. There's going to be very little expense. I will go anywhere in the world, whoever's selling beautiful stuff, and I will buy it and I will bring it to you and sell it. And I'm going to use some videos to advertise some products. So it's these D&D videos, I guess what I'm getting at, is only the start to my business ideas. And at the same time, it's not just start, but it's really a stepping stone. And it's something that I would love to talk about. And I think it's a great market right now. But I just want everyone to know I have bigger ambitions. And at the same time, I think that helps me with D&D because a lot of people take it way too seriously. And once again, we're talking about a fantasy make-believe game where you could role play and create armies and cause all sorts of drama. It's something that you want to play relaxed. And I don't know if you're watching other videos, but people take this really seriously. And for me, it's always going to be laid back, relaxed environment, not really worried about the money here because I want to make the money later on. And with these videos, I really just want to get a bunch of eyes and have a platform to broadcast other products. And with that, if you don't mind, if you do mind, go ahead and turn off the video now, and you can go to 2 or 3 and go ahead and watch me talk about what you want to see, fantasy role-playing. But if you want to see some products from an exotic place in the world that's very dear to me, hold on one second, let me make my camera bigger, and I'll show you what kind of products I'm talking about. Now, oh, do I have them? Oh, yeah. Let's see which camera is going to work better for this. Actually, well, let's see. No. Let's see this one. This right here is a leather wallet, handmade in Mexico. Looks like a beautiful flower design. Very nice stitching on it. Thin wallet, not too flashy. Oh, I got it upside down. Kind of dark, but nice clean wallet. And stuff like this in America, I don't know how much you pay. You won't even find something like this in America, but I'm gonna be selling it for maybe like 40 bucks to start off. 40 bucks. Other than that, I got these wonderful bags, which actually have a lot of uses. I have a giant mason jar, and I put water in it and bring it to the gym, and have a little sack where I could hold my water and drink it. But it's just beautiful colors, I thought, and for the price I could sell them at, I just thought a lot of people might like to have a bag like this. I also have bigger ones that are exactly the same style, but they're a little bit bigger, but a little bit harder to show you. But something like this I'm looking to sell for about, starting off and being $18. And yeah, we'll talk about this thing, why not? It's just a cell phone pouch. The only thing I don't like about this one is it's Velcro. So you hear that? Yeah. So it's better to have a buckle. But anyways, I just bought it because I thought it was pretty. But this is another product, a leather product that I could get from. These are all from Mexico, by the way. So that's where I'll be starting off, is importing leather from Mexico. I think that's the easiest way for me to start making money. Right here it says Hecho en Mexico, made in Mexico. And I guess to wrap it up, let me show you this extra picture here. This could be you right here. And I really thank you for taking the time to listen to my video, and stay tuned for 2 and 3. Actually, they'll be coming right up, so unless you're watching this video within seconds of me putting it up, they're going to be already down there. So if you liked what I said, go ahead and check out 2 and 3, and if you really like what I said, try to find some friends and let's play D&D together. Have a wonderful night, day, or morning, or whatever it is, and I hope to see from you soon.